Oh, we're ready.
We're
Hello.
on.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, everybody. Wait, welcome to the Getting Started with Konstru webinar. We have myself, Israel Makovic. I'm Konstru's product marketing manager on the webinar right now. We also have Max. Max, you can introduce yourself.
Yes. Hi, guys. I'm Max. I'm one of the developers of Konstru. Yeah.
And so we've been starting to have these Getting Started with Konstru webinars to help out a lot of our new users, our free trial users that are coming on board. A lot of these webinars have been helping them with some of the basics and really to get started uploading models, translating data. And so basically, if you have any questions during this webinar, feel free to write them up and shoot them our way. We'll answer these questions at the end. We'll also provide a list of what questions were sent to us during the webinar, and we'll follow up at the end with the webinar recording. So without further ado, I'll let Max get started.
Thank you very much, Israel. So, yeah, welcome everybody to our webinar. And this is a basic webinar on translating your models with Konstru. So, just to give you a quick overview about where Konstru is coming from. Jonathan, who's usually there, who will be here with the next webinar as well, I guess. The two of us, Jonathan and I, worked at Thorn Tomasetti, and at Thorn Tomasetti Engineering, we were facing a lot of challenging projects like the one you see on the screen. And the issue was that here, the architect actually decided throughout the time of the building to change its shape all the time and actually added more and more floors because they had more requests over time to build more condos. And so we as engineers were challenged with permanently getting new Rhino files from the architect, but also had to update our engineering models. And so we implemented very early solutions for that. And here you just see a little video of that. This is basically a Grasshopper script that allows you to change the geometry of the building, but then actually extract from this changed geometry a file that you would read in Etabs. And Etabs is, if you're not an engineer or not common with it, it's just an analysis tool. And this analysis tool would then allow us to analyze the new structure. But this way, we actually didn't have to build the same building over and over again. What you see here is that we just changed the geometry, and then actually we added some new stories to that. And once the stories have been added, you see that here this script is actually completing the building. And then we were able to extract this data and bring it over to Etabs. So basically what we're doing is trying to make applications talk to each other. And that was our major goal. So for example, having a Revit model and bringing it into Etabs or also all the other applications we support. So the goal is to make all the applications talk to each other. So what is Konstru at the moment? Konstru is a web-based platform that actually supports various products. So we have plugins for SAP 2000, Revit, RAM. We have Grasshopper, Excel, Etabs, Dynamo, and Tekla structures. But also we actually have new plugins just this week have been added. Was Visual Arc, which is a new tool that we're supporting right now, but it's basically related to Rhino and Grasshopper. And so it is a web-based platform, as I mentioned before. And so everything you do, it's on the cloud. Then we have a central data repository, which means we're actually uploading data from each platform to a so, sorry, there was an issue with the mute button. I have been muted. And we actually store the entire project history. So this means that every time you change something in your model and you upload it to the cloud, we will store the change. And this way you actually have a history of changes of your model, and you can actually explore this online, which is really powerful. And we have an ability to actually control what data is being exchanged. We have a technique that we call filtering that allows you to say, let's say, I want to upload a building, but I only want to upload columns, for example. Or if I update something, I only want to make sure only my walls are updated, but not the columns and stuff like that. So you can work very detailed and control every step of the translation. And we give you full transparency. We have a system that we call a review dialog that actually enables you to see what's going to happen to your model every time you translate it. So this is really, really nice. Today, there's a little special I just want to announce, and I will give you a sneak peek. We have some new elements that we're supporting right now because we're traditionally only working on BIM elements, but now we introduce new elements that are meshes, surfaces, and curves. So this actually allows you from Rhino, for example, Grasshopper, to upload meshes, curves, and surfaces and bring them into Dynamo or directly into Revit. And this is a very new feature, and yeah, we invite you to try it out and just use those new elements. But now it's demo time and I'm jumping right on it. So if you haven't used Konstru before, the first thing you have to do to use Konstru, you go to our Konstru web app. This is just an app.konstru.com. And in here, you see all the models that you have. Usually you have a demo model, and then you can create a new one. So for example, this one is a new one I'm creating for today, and I'm going to call it webinar model, for example. And you can enter a description if you want to, and then you can just click create. So this creates a new container in Konstru, and this container is now about to be filled. There's already a video popping up telling you about like how to upload something from, for example, Revit. And this is exactly what we're going to do now. So you can install Konstru if you go to the Get Plugins section, and in here you will find our plugins. You can just download the plugins installer. These are actually all the platforms we support. We have a Dynamo plugin as well, but this comes via Package Manager. All the others can be downloaded here and being installed. So, and then you can actually fill your model with data. After installing Konstru, you will find it, for example, in Revit, in the Konstru menu bar. There's a Konstru button. I'm going to upload the structure. This is a model I modeled earlier, and I'm going to click Konstru, and then I have to select the model that I actually want to choose. So in this case, I'm going to select the webinar model, and I'm going to choose Update Konstru. Because right now I cannot download the model because it's entirely empty. So I'm going to click Update Konstru, and I'm going to describe my upload and say this is the first upload. Now I'm going to say Update Konstru. And what Konstru does now is actually what we talked about, this transparency part, is that we're building a review dialog that actually tells you about the changes that are about to happen. So what we see now are we are going to add 370 elements to this model online. So we have 12 levels, 34 grids and stuff like that. And we have some columns, walls, beams, and so on. We also have some elements that we don't support, that are not supported by Revit, for example, which are areas, nodes, restraints, releases. So we don't actually care about them. And some elements have been filtered, like load patterns. We don't really need them, and load combinations and stuff like that. And so at this point, Konstru didn't do anything yet. So you can always cancel if you don't like it. But in my case, I want to continue. And now Konstru is going to push those changes to the server. And once this is done, we can actually click a button that takes us online. So now we're done, and it says, now explore your model, view it online. Now if I click it, it opens up in my browser. And this also takes a second and loads the model that we just uploaded. Sometimes this gets stuck here, sorry about that. And now we're rendering the model. So this is actually the Revit model as you just saw it in Revit. And this is rendering, and now you can explore those elements, and those are all BIM elements like they are in Revit. So if I click one of those beams, for example, you can see on the right-hand side, this is a type beam, it has a material, it has a profile section, and it also has some other properties like a left offset, rotation, and we have some other information and join status and things like that. So there's a lot of information coming in from this element. And you can also, this is very powerful, you can actually visualize your model by various things. For example, here we have a button that allows you to view your model by, for example, profile section. If you click this, you actually see the entire model highlighted in different colors by different profile sections. So this way you can easily explore. For example, here you see the yellow ones, you see the braces are different than those braces here, for example. You see the yellow ones here in the legend. There's something like an HSS section. And now what we can do, for example, with Konstru is that we are an interoperability platform, right? So we have, I'm going to show you two clients today, really briefly. One of them is Excel, which is really powerful, and the other one will be Etabs. So we will go afterwards into Etabs as well. Now, first for Excel, I'm going to Excel, and after installing Konstru, I find Konstru for Excel also in the add-ins tab. I'm going to click Konstru. And what you will see is the same dialog, because we have the same dialog everywhere, right? So every time you open or run Konstru, you will get the same interface, which is really convenient. And currently this takes a bit because probably my connection is a bit slow. So, and now it's loaded. Now I'm going to select the webinar model, and I'm going to, now I can choose between update and download. In my case, I want to download to Excel. I'm going to click download, and what happens is that Konstru is now building us again a review dialog, and it will tell us about the elements that it's about to add to Excel, which are 370 elements. This is the same amount that we uploaded, and I say finish download. This is perfect, and now my Excel sheet is being built. Now I have an Excel sheet with all those tabs here by element type, and I can go, for example, to braces. And I could, for example, explore all the braces by section sizes, but also correct them, because I say all the braces in my model need to be a different kind of shape. So I'm going to take the HSS section, and I'm going to copy this one over to all the braces in my model. What you can also do, which is really helpful, is you can actually filter down your elements by levels. We have these filters in place, so you can, for example, say only update certain elements on a certain level. We'll do that as well. Let's say we go to columns, and on columns we go into the first level, and on the first level we might change all the section sizes to something else. For example, let's explore our profile section catalog if that's possible, or just type in something else that you might make sense for you. For example, we can just copy over the other section size. Sorry. We can just go, for example, to another level and to see all of them. See if we have any different section size. For example, these HP sections. We're going to apply those on the first level. So I'm going to copy those over. Now change all those section sizes. So what I'm going to do now is going to click Konstru again, and I'm going to select the webinar model, and I'm going this time to select update Konstru. Now I'm going to describe my changes and say I changed braces and columns. I'm going to say update Konstru, and Konstru again is going to inform us about the changes that are about to happen. And now we can see that we actually changed 24 columns. We changed their profile, and we also changed the profile of 36 braces. I'm going to say finish update, and this update will be pushed to the server. If I click view model, again, I will see my 3D model in a second. It's rendering, and it will tell me about the changes that I just applied, all of them together, and I can see them online. This is really nice. So I can see that actually the elements that have been changed are all those elements here. The braces, for example, have been modified, and I can also see that the columns at the bottom have been modified as well. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to download this model, for example, into Etabs. So now I'm going into Etabs, and I'm going to Tools, and there I can find Konstru as well, and I'm going to say, yes, run this plugin. And again, the same dialog pops up, and I can select the webinar model. Now I'm going to download into Etabs, and this model will be downloaded into Etabs. Now the staging dialog tells me 335 elements will be added to this model, and some of them are filtered out here in this case. For example, openings are filtered out, and also some other elements are not brought in. I'm going to say finish download, and this is now an important step actually of Konstru. So if you come into another application, you will see that we usually have different material setups and stuff like that. So for example, here we have materials coming in unknown, for example, and it's, in this case, we can assign it to a material in our document or actually create a document, create a material. In this case, it's already set to create new, and the steel, for example, is already mapped to A992, which is fine. And we could now map it to a material that we actually have in our list here. Or we could just say create new. For example, here I'm going to say, well, unknown could be mapped to concrete, and then, for example, 4000 psi, I'm assigning it. And also I can map, for example, area sections and profile sections. And usually they have been identified in my library, or if they haven't been found, then they will be created from scratch. Now I'm going to say OK to continue, and those changes will be applied. Now Konstru is going to create new section sizes and preparing the model. and building it in Etabs. Now here in our transaction log, it will tell me about one of the materials that it just has been created, and just gives me a warning and lets me know like, okay, we created a new material. Maybe you want to check this material later on. I'm going to say done, and this has been completed successfully. So now you can see the model in Etabs, and maybe we can also just render, for example, section sizes. So you will see that everything has been extruded correctly, and we have all the same profile sections as we saw them online already. So now what we can do here in Etabs is the same thing as in Excel. So we could select, for example, a column. We could change its section size. For example, here, I'm going to change this one. And what you could also do, of course, is run your analysis and bring back your analysis results. This is something we showed in other webinars. We're not going to show that today. But I'm going to apply some changes. For example, here, this joint could also be modified. This is basically in this position here. You see this is not really an axis because this has been moved. So I'm going to move it back to 0 so this model actually looks a bit better. So this is now upright and correctly, and I might change something else. I could also delete or add new elements. Now keep it to those little changes so you will see what's happening. So now I'm going to go back to Tools, run Konstru, and select the model again that I used before. And I'm going to say Update Konstru. I have to describe my change, and I'm going to say fixed column and change the section size. I'm going to say Update Konstru. And those, again, Konstru is now going to build a difference report, tells us about some changes that are interesting. For example, it tells us about levels that have been removed from a model that were actually not like 7, 8, 9, 10. They were above the building and they haven't been created in Etabs. And then there are also some levels that are brought in that actually are standard levels from Etabs, like the base level, which we have to have in Etabs, so we have to bring it in. And we have 104 updates as well. And those are basically material changes because we changed the unknown material to concrete PSI. What we can do here, and this is really interesting, we can also now change our filter setting. We have a filter here, going online, and I'm going to just suppress those changes on materials. We have an extra webinar where we explain this in a bit more detail, but actually they're quite simple to use. So you can just go into your filters and you go, for example, to columns and you say no material changes, and you go to braces, say you don't want material changes, neither for beams and also neither for walls and for floors. And now I'm going to say save. And if I go back to my application, to Etabs, I'm going to reload those filters, and I will see now I have less changes because now I actually have only 2 changes here on updates, and these are the columns. One of them has changed its profile and the other one has changed its geometry. Now I'm going to say finish update and commit those changes to the server. And if I click view model, it will take me online again and render my 3D model. Now I can see all those changes that I actually applied. And here we can also see, and this is interesting, so when we see that actually geometry of these columns changed, and this is now upright, and this one has a different section size. If you want to explore those changes, you can just click an element, and then you will see on the right-hand side before and after values. So you actually know precisely what changed. So, and now we're going to bring all of this back into Revit. Now I'm going to click on Revit, and I'm going to say Konstru again, select the webinar model, and going to download into Revit. Now, I'm expecting a lot of changes here because we changed some of the section sizes in Excel, as you remember, and we changed geometry in Etabs, and also the section size of one of the columns. So we will expect all those changes, and they will be in our change dialog. We could also, with those filters I showed earlier very briefly, we could also actually just take care of those and filter them out if we don't like them. But now let's see what we actually have. So we have some elements that are coming in as new, so those levels from Etabs, and then also we have some changes in profiles here in columns, and we have some braces that we changed. And actually what we can do in Revit, which is really powerful, is we can move this dialog a bit to the side and then actually click a question mark here, Now we don't have the best view for this element, but if you click here next, you will actually see like each of these elements, and it will tell you about the changes that are about to happen. So here we have a profile section that changes from 6 by 8.5 to an HFS section. And these, for example, as well, all those braces, of course. Now, those are the changes I actually expect. And there was a geometry change also here somewhere for this column. And we're going to accept that. It's great. And now I'm going to say finish download. Again, there's this mapper popping up and telling me about all the mappings that are about to happen. And I'm going to say, okay, this is great. And now those changes will be applied to the model. And this has been done. And if I look at my model, let's move this a bit over, we see this column is now straight. This one is smaller than before. And also all our braces actually changed. Their section size are now HSS sections. So all of those changes have been applied. What is also really powerful in general in Konstru is that we have a history of all those changes. So if you go to the history tab online, you can actually see all the things that happen to your model. For example, here we see an earlier state where we said change braces and columns. And also here we have our first upload. Usually you get a nice rendering here, but sometimes this doesn't work perfectly. But you can always go to visualize, and here you see the model rendering. For example, this was the latest state that we actually had of the model. What we can do here is we can go back to the first upload, and in the first upload we will then see the model as it was at the first state. So in the first state we uploaded it, we had this here slanted column, and then we also had different section sizes for all those columns. And yeah, if we go throughout time here and we go back to the latest state, we will see that this is the current state of the model, and it renders, and this is the one we wanted to have. We can also do here, and there are a lot of features in Konstru. We can repair models. We have various webinars on that also that you can watch online. We also have the ability to merge or compare models. And you can, for example, what we saw earlier with the changes, you can actually compare changes across earlier versions. So for example, here we have this ability to see what is the change to the version that we had before, but also what is the change to the version we had as first upload. So here you actually see many, many more changes. And for example, it highlights all the columns and braces that we changed throughout the process. So this is a really powerful tool, and we hope you're going to explore it a bit more, what you can do with it. And now we're entering our questions part. So, and one thing I promised you guys was to actually show you a sneak peek of our new elements. So if we go to this model here, this is a model I uploaded some days ago. These are new elements that we're supporting now. So we are now beyond the scope of pure BIM models that we uploaded earlier only. So what we can see here is actually a meshed surface. This is a NURB surface that will be translated into NURB surface as well in other platforms. And we also have, for example, this element here. This is a little bunny, and this little bunny also has attributes and a lot of information to it. And also here we have a curve that we can also upload. So the new elements that we have are curves, meshes, and NURB surfaces. So this is just one of the models to demonstrate this. You can download them, for example, into Revit, just to give you a little idea how this looks then. So if we just create a new Revit project, because I don't want to have it in this building, let's say I'm going to create a new metric file. If I go to Konstru and I select the bunny model, I can download this one into Revit directly. And as Konstru usually does, we are building now a difference report and telling you about the changes. This takes a bit, sorry, it might be a delay in my connection right now. So probably we're going to skip that part and jump to the questions directly. Now I get it. So, and here in our model, we can see now, here we have the mesh downloaded as a bunny, then we have a NURB surface, and we also have a curve. This is a model curve in here. So these are the new elements that we're supporting. So, and now I hope you all entered some questions into the questions tab so I can answer them. And yeah, just opening them up. So The first question we have is, can you transfer loads from Etabs to Grasshopper and vice versa? Yes, you can. That's a very good question. Yes, you can. We didn't demonstrate this today. Maybe we're going to demonstrate this in the next webinar. Actually, we want to encourage you also to give us more feedback on what you want to see on webinars. So, for example, this is a really nice thing to do. We're going to have a Grasshopper webinar pretty soon, and on this Grasshopper webinar, we're going to show loads as well. So you will see how to set them up in Grasshopper and bring them into Etabs. Then another question is, when I download it to Grasshopper, can I make changes and see them directly before uploading back to Konstru? You can see them in our dialog that we saw, this change review dialog, but you don't see them in 3D. So every time you see this review dialog, you can cancel this and you can see those changes, but yeah, it's not like a 3D preview. And then there was also a question, can you delete versions in the history? This is very nice. Yes, well, you can't. You can sort of. I will show that to you briefly. What you can do is you can go to the history and, sorry, this is the bunny that doesn't have any history. But if we go to the webinar model, and for example, here we see in the history that we don't like one of the changes we had. So for example, we say that this last change was not nice. We can say we revert back to this state, or we even revert back to the very first state. So if I click here and say revert and click revert again, then I actually get a new version in my model. And this is the first upload. So this is not really deleted because we didn't delete this one, but we took it back as the first state. So you see the entire history. We still see there was a first upload. We changed braces and columns, and then actually we fixed the columns and changed some section sizes. And then we actually reverted back to the very first upload. So it's not really deleting a version, but it's meaning we're going back and you can go back to that state, but all of the history will be traced and you can always see what happened to your model, because maybe tomorrow you will think, well, okay, this was really nice that I reverted back, but actually this change was good. And you can again click revert and just make it the latest version again. So then also I would like to encourage you to explore all our other features that we have. For example, repair, compare, merge, as I already mentioned. And also what is important is this people tab that we have, because here you can actually invite other people to your model. So if you want to collaborate with someone, you can always invite other people on the people tab. And so if there, yeah, I hope there are more questions and you guys are going to post them into the questions tab. Yes, someone is asking us, yeah, where can I download the plugins again? This was something I showed earlier. Maybe you joined a bit later. At the top in the menu, you actually see a Get Plugins button here. And if you click Get Plugins, you can download the plugins installer here. We have one installer that actually brings all those plugins, and it actually checks what you have installed on your machine. So it tries to find that and then installs the plugins accordingly. If you have any trouble with the plugins, you can always contact us and let us know. We will help. Then we have another question. Exporting to SAP 2000 is the same as Etabs. Yes, exactly. Since SAP 2000 and Etabs have more or less pretty similar, the same API. It's all the same procedure. And also in SAP, you will also see the plugin. If you're going to tools, there's a button Konstru after the installation. As I said, if there are any trouble with installations, we can always help out, but it's exactly the same for Etabs and SAP. And what I also want to encourage you to look at is our documentation. So in our Konstru app, we have a documentation button here, and there we have some information on getting started, the supported elements and platforms that we have. And then we have a link to tutorials and also to our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel has a lot of great videos. Also, this video will be posted in our YouTube channel. And in here, you actually can see, like, for example, a lot of things like download from Konstru to Visual Art, upload to Visual Art, then translating geometry elements to Revit. And there are a lot of information, a lot of interesting videos that you can look at, and you will learn how Konstru actually works in detail. Yeah.
If you're interested in learning other things or need help, we're always there on customer support. So ping us if there's something that we can help with. We definitely are here to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody. And because now we're coming to an end, the half hour is over. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
do you
and
have anything to add?
we'll be sending out a poll in an email with the webinar recording here shortly. So we'd love to get any of your feedback on that. So have a great rest of y'all's Friday.
Thank you very much. Bye.